Okay, I think I'm ready to go. All right, so we've got the chat up. Hopefully it's working like I hope it will. But all right, so we're doing Grimlock today, voted by people on Twitter. So you can see I have some light blue lines printed out here. We're just gonna ink it up and have a little fun. We've got Transformers Victory in the background here, disc 1. All right, good afternoon, hello. So this Grimlock is mostly a Generation 1 look, but I kind of added a few little touches here and there of my own, or maybe borrowed from something else I've seen. Grimlock doesn't change too much from his different iterations. Ooh, sorry about that. I gotta turn the old head around backwards again. Zombie Prowl doing alternate as Grimlock. Nice. Is that a Mustang? I think he turns into a Mustang. The shadow's a little rough. Bear with me for a second. I'm going to try to turn the camera so I can get out of the shadow. Just moving everybody over a little bit. That's right. Wheeljack, also a Mustang. I never had that toy, but I like the look of it. So it's looking like the chat is appearing on the side like I hoped that it would. I'm giving Grimmy his little, just a little chin thing here. I don't know why. Just adds a little character. Generation 1 Grimlock has like a couple of different animation models, a more simplified version and one that has a bit more detail in it. But a lot of times his head is like just super simple. So I like to add just a little bit of detail to, I don't know, he seems like he's a pretty simple fellow, but seems like he should have a few more little sharp edges and stuff like that. Right now I'm using the number 3 for my lines here. This is a little bit larger, you know, a little closer up, I guess, than the last one. Most of the images I do, I use a number 1 for number 1 micron for the initial lines, but we're going with the 3 on this one. I think it'll look good for a closer shot. Terminator, yeah. Me be back. Alright, we'll try to get this foreground piece out of the way here. I got his sword cutting right in front of him. Kind of breaks up the model a little bit. I'm not making his sword sort of like flaming this time around. Usually I do, but I kind of didn't want all that getting in the way. Sometimes you see it's kind of energon, glowing, flaming, whatever. But we're keeping it basic for this one. But like I said before, I try to get the heads and the hands. Anybody who has been around for more than one of these is probably quickly getting sick of hearing me say that, but heads and hands pretty much first. As you can probably tell, I did the pencils for this digitally. So I was able to flip the head. I drew in the head and took the half I liked better and just copied and pasted it, flipped it, so it's symmetrical. But then once I print it out and I kind of ink it by hand, that gives a chance for some, you know, some small differences from one side to the other for kind of a more natural look. Huh. I'm sure somebody could. Zombie Prowl. I did not know that Grimlock had the eyes behind the visor. That is kind of weird. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Good thing about characters like Grimlock is you can kind of, I find you can be a little sketchier with him, because you can't imagine his, you know, his frame isn't going to be scuffed up and nicked and damaged, you know, so dented. If there's a little bit of a, you know, rough spot here and there, that kind of fits with his personality. Oh, Star Saber. This is the first episode of Victory. It sounds like there's a lot of action to start out. I don't think I've ever actually watched it. I don't mind the chatting at all. What program do I sketch in? It's an old copy of Photoshop CS2. I just do my my pencils or my rough sketch there, depending on the situation. And just kind of turn it to this light blue and print it out on my printer. I've got a Epson Stylus Photo 1400, which can fit the 11 by 17 pages. So I print them out right on there. Yeah, tank pre-Earth. Victory, one of the Japanese Generation 1 series, I guess. It was Headmasters, and then Master Force, and then Victory was, I think, somebody correct me, I think Victory was the final animated Transformers show in Japan, Generation 1 Transformers show. Oh, good. So they dubbed it in Spanish then? I never got to see any of these as a kid. It wasn't until I was an adult that I acquired all three of them. I was actually given them by a very generous person at a convention. They gave me all three series. I don't know if they had upgraded to a different DVD copy and had a spare or what, but they straight up gave them to me. That was very, very kind, very cool. And yeah, I haven't done them the honor of actually watching them yet, but I'm looking forward to the day when I finally can get through all three of them. I've watched a fair amount of Headmasters. That's the one I've watched the most of, but the others I haven't. I have a hard time with like Power Master Optimus Prime was one of my favorite toys from when I was younger. I just love that toy, and that was my Optimus Prime for a while. I did have a Generation 1 Optimus, but that was, broken, lost, or whatever. So for a long time, Power Master Optimus Prime was my Optimus Prime. Obviously, if you read the Marvel comic, he had a big presence there in his Power Master form, which I really loved. So, the fact that he is Jinrei in these DVDs, it just is weird to me. I don't have a problem with it. It's just hard to wrap my head around it. Like, no, that's Optimus Prime. But anyway, someday I'll get around to it and watch the whole thing. What's the deal with the Mexican Optimus Prime? Is there a difference to the toy, or is it just like the packaging or something like that? Interesting. Is that similar to some of the mini bots? Like I've seen like a cliff jumper, like a white cliff jumper, and things like that with some. I think it was Spanish language packaging. Is that similar? off camera there. All right. Alright, we got a lot of curved lines on old Grimlock here. There's a few straight ones also. Hope everybody's having a good Friday. I'm running a little bit behind today. I had a sick kid this morning, sadly. But that appears to be over now. It's not that kind of sick, don't worry. But yeah, that set me behind a little bit today. I'd actually hoped to have this partially done by the time I started the stream, but no such luck. Well, let's add a little bit of detail here. Just adding stuff on the fly. Why not? I'm off camera again, aren't I? Heads, hand, and then crotch. That's how I do it. 3 most important parts. This is an interesting song. Never heard this one before. A little outro music there. Got this leg really coming out at the viewer right here. If you're a Decepticon, you don't want to see this guy coming at you. Is anybody on here who voted on my Twitter page for who we were drawing here today? You voted for Wing. There was, I think, 3 votes for Wing. It's nice to see him get get a little love, I guess. Of course, Corinne, you voted for Mirage. I should do a Mirage. I don't draw him very often. I feel the same way about Hound. I think Hound is a character who has a lot of, he gets a lot of screen time early on, and a lot of people like Hound, but for some reason, you just don't see a lot with Hound. I mean, he's got a nice, what are we calling it, Siege toy, but, you know, he sometimes gets a little bit ignored, so I think I'll do Hound at some point soon. Yeah, Wing didn't really make any appearances outside of the Drift mini, did he? I gotta figure out that wiggle. Sorry about that. I took a few liberties with his upper body here. If you look at his Generation 1 animation model, there's some really weird angles going on. It's kind of hard to tell exactly how it's supposed to be going there, so I feel like every time I see it drawn, it's a little bit different. So I kind of did my own thing a little bit here. I mean, they seem to be going through a lot of people in these new toys, a lot of characters, so who knows, maybe we'll see that. I'm still waiting for an official Turmoil toy. I like the, is it MMC version? But I'd love to see an official version. Yeah, Flatline would be good too. There's a lot of opportunity out there. I'm hoping we'll see some of these more obscure characters in the Netflix show. Of course, those will probably mostly be characters that are getting toys, but you never know. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I didn't count the likes because, you know, I saw there were some people, like, I'd see somebody vote for somebody and then it would get a few likes, but then I clicked on that person's profile and they have like a few thousand followers, so it's like, well, some of their followers are probably just going to like it because they just like what that person does, or, you know what I mean? So I figured I'd just count mentions, but yeah, Omega would be a good one. Maybe I'll get to him eventually. If I had all the time in the world, I'd do everybody. Transformer. Draw every Transformer. Official Deadlock, yeah. They didn't do one? It must have been a third party. I feel like I've seen a Deadlock. Only the voices in my head. No, I don't typically think about voices when I'm drawing. I mean, you know, characters like this, every once in a while, a little Greg Berger voice will probably slip into my mind. But, I don't consciously think about that usually when I'm drawing the character. Let's add a little detail on the arm here. I don't want to make them too plain. I like the G1 models, but sometimes they just need a little help. Actually, what am I saying? They're perfection in every way. I'm just a glutton for punishment. Probably gonna end up blacking a lot of that out, but whatever. Alright, I'm giving Grimlock some little hip doodads here because I feel like it. I don't know if you guys can pick up on the fact that my number 3 here is wearing a bit thin, but I'm trying to get all the life out of it I can before I move on to the next one. Do any of you on here watch art streams regularly? If so, just thinking, if you have any suggestions for anything that I could/should be doing to make any of this more interesting or interactive or, anything like that. Chromia Prime. Chroma Prime? I'm not familiar with that. not a transformer. Oh, well. Not happening then. No, I'm kidding. I'll have to Google it. Warframe. Yeah, I don't really take in a lot of other fiction these days, other than like kid shows I'm watching with my son. Well, thanks, everybody. Still haven't fixed that wiggle, but other than that, I feel like this is going okay. I'm definitely going to add a little bit of character to this sword as we go along. Well, that's good to know. Some of the blockier transformers are like a bit of a challenge when you want to get different posture in there, you know, like it's kind of tilted at the waist. It can be a little awkward. Yeah, every time my tools are on this little side table that I have the phone arm clamped to, and every time I get one, it kind of wiggles a little bit unless I'm super careful. So sorry about that. Dino King. Did I hear Dino King? Seems appropriate. Come see the stream with the wiggle. Could give the wrong impression. Not that kind of stream, kids. Should do some transformer wiggles. That would be great. Or not. What do I want to do over there? I'll just leave that alone for now. Like I said earlier, I'm kind of freelancing a bit on some of the detail here. It's the perfect combination. All right, what do I want to do next? Let's go to his shoulders here. Use the old template, cheat a little bit, because why not? Oh, it's a tough angle with the paper. So, on the subject of other streams, what can you all recommend? What streams do you like watching? Yeah, I've been looking forward to Daimoo's stream. I don't think he's done one since I signed up for this, but I'm looking forward to watching the next time he puts one out. Esports, nice. You'll be happy to know my son and I play Madden 2003 on my GameCube. I've also got NBA Live 99 still for my PlayStation. This is the era of games that I've got. I'm going to remember to turn notifications off on my phone before I do this next time. I keep having things pop up on my screen. I don't think you all can see that. Maybe you can. Can you see that? Patriots running back in 03. Goodness, I actually don't. I don't know. I typically use the Eagles. I don't know if it was Corey. Was it Corey Dillon then? That's my home team. I have to do it. I mean, I don't have to, but I'm from Reading, Pennsylvania initially, so That's what I grew up on. Unfortunately for me, up until a couple years ago, the Eagles didn't really win too much, or at all, really. The Super Bowl era. I do live in Mass now, yeah. I'm not a Patriots hater, to be honest. Like, even though the Eagles went up against them twice in the Super Bowl, I'm not a hater. I like to, when I watch the Patriots, I don't buy into the cheating stuff. I like to think that I'm watching. Oh God, Eagles fans will probably puke if they hear me say this, but I like to think I'm watching a great team. I want to watch greatness and appreciate it. I've mentioned this before to some people, like, I grew up watching, like, the Jordan era NBA, and I wanted to see every team not named the Chicago Bulls win. And every time, Jordan kept winning. He was the best player in the league. They kept on winning, and they beat the Knicks, who I wanted to see win. They beat, everybody else who I wanted to see win. And I hated Jordan. And I don't know, at some point I kind of mellowed out a little bit, and I thought, you know what? I don't want to hate greatness anymore. I want to watch it and appreciate it, even if I'm not a fan. I definitely wouldn't call myself a fan of the Patriots. Sometimes I like watching them lose as much as any other non-Patriots fan, but I'm not a hater. Oh yeah, Jordan cheated plenty. He got plenty of calls in his favor. Let me go back to the 3 here. I think, did we drive anybody off with a sports talk? The Bears. Mom's a Dolphins fan. My dad's a Broncos fan. Oh my God. Yeah, no. Patriots will not be welcome there. Oh my. Move this around a bit. What do you all think? How's Grimlock looking so far? What cons do I usually do? Any of the USTF cons? I don't think I've missed one yet. That's probably my only regular one. Other than a couple of one local one really. I do Rhode Island Comic Con almost every year. It's a 2-hour drive from my house, and I bring my daughter there, who's also a very talented artist. So we do Rhode Island every year, TF Con USA every year, and other than that, I kind of mix it up a little bit. I do miss conventions right now, I gotta say. It was a hard hit to miss TFCon, although, the right move, but I was really looking forward to it. Oh, Zombie Prowl, do you follow her on Instagram? Yeah, she's terrific, and it's interesting watching her grow up with all the kind of modern tools they have now. You know, she has her iPad with Procreate, and she's so efficient with it. And, you know, she can draw on paper. She can do anything she wants to, really. But it's just really neat to see her kind of come into her own as an artist. It's very, you know, proud papa moments, you know. Oops. If anybody's not familiar with her art, she's on Instagram. She goes by Rose's Art Wow with 2 W's. She had, you know, a more traditionally spelled version of that, which she forgot the password to, and she forgot the password to the email that it was connected to. We tried everything to recover that account, and she couldn't get back on it, so she started a new account, Rose's Art Wow, ending with 2 W's. And yeah, she's great. A lot of cat art on there. Perspective's kind of wonky here. Oh well. It's perfect. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take a lot of effort. She's, you know, it's pretty easy to be proud of her. Let's see here. Trust your pencils. That's what I have to tell myself sometimes. Anybody ever notice when you're inking, sometimes you'll be second guessing the pencils you've laid down, and you know, then you kind of switch it up a little bit, and sometimes you regret it. Every once in a while it works out in your favor, but for the most part, when I mess with it, it ends up looking pretty wonky. Like, hey, I put that line there for a reason. So it's a little tip for everybody out there that hasn't experienced it. Trust your pencils, unless they suck. All right, I got a little Grimlock jaw hiding back here. This detail's not usually thrown in his bot mode, but I thought it was fun. Yeah, I think so. Sakura, Micron. Yeah, yep. There you go. I was like, they don't actually have the name on there anywhere, but it's right here in the little flower icon. It's pretty much exclusively what I use for all these straight lines when I'm doing this. Sometimes when I'm doing, some of you have already probably seen or know this, but when I'm doing the more organic shapes, I'll use, or just when I want a little different flow to it, I'll use the brush pens, the zebra, and sometimes the, actually more the Kuretake than the zebra. Yeah, I've tried a few different things too, but I don't know, these, they last, they, you know, the size of the tip is consistent, so I'm a fan.
その通りです。博士たち探査隊のスタッフは貴重な調査資料を手に半年ぶりに地球へ帰る途中だったんです。
Yeah. And once you get used to something, you kind of, it's hard to accept something that's slightly different. All right, let's do his little, I kind of hate these little wing things that he has, but only because the angle, like, they're curved in different ways, in different, I don't know. It's hard to keep them in the right perspective, but, you know, hopefully you can make them look decent without anybody noticing if you screw them up. DeLorean doors, yeah. Roche also uses them, yeah. And hey, if he uses them, then sign me up. I'm a big fan of his inking. I mean, his art altogether, but I like the way his inks look. So I'm giving this panel like a little indentation, but then that I'm cutting it back for this right here. And then you've got this kind of curves out here and also comes back in, but then curves out again. I've never used the Copic multi-liners. I have used the Pitt pens. I have mixed thoughts on those. I used to bring those around to conventions, the Pitt pens, for, I don't know why I kind of separated them, but I'd leave my microns at home and bring the Pitt pens to conventions with me. But then I just kind of was like, why am I buying two different kind of pen? I'll just stick to the microns for everything. Getting off the screen a little bit, I guess. I think I'm probably going to end up blacking out a lot of this, a lot of the shadowed area here. But I'll get it inked in first. Usually I will kind of plan out exactly where the shadows are going to fall, or at least have a light source in mind before I start inking, but this time I was, like I said, I was kind of in a rush, so I just kind of did the basics and then printed it out and started up the stream, and here we are. So this is kind of not exactly how it goes in the toy, but it's how my brain is making sense of it, so we're gonna go with that. Dip pen and watercolor. Yeah, I've never really worked much with watercolor, but it's something that I would like to try to do more of at some point. I mean, theoretically, now would be the time, right? Everything's kind of on pause. No comics are being made. Any of my other jobs are on hold right now. The thing I appreciate about watercolor, at least from, looking from a distance, is that you can, get a lot of variety out of a watercolor set, but you don't need to bring, like with Copics, people bring like an endless supply of Copics with them and do beautiful things with them, but there's just so much that you need. But if you get a little watercolor set with a nice brush and you can pretty much do everything you need with it. $500 markers, wow. Sounds expensive. But that's what a lot of people do, and it's super impressive stuff. Let's see. How do I want to play this here? Well, you're not alone. A lot of hobbies require a little bit of financial commitment there. All right. Let's throw in a little extra detail here. What do we got here? A little bit after 2. All right, so we'll spend another hour or so on Grimlock here and see where we wind up. Those sound effects are they're very Fist of the North Star. Hmm. Oh yeah, gotta take care of the family first. Same here. Mess with that. All right. Darken all that in. Put a little trace of an Autobot symbol up here behind the sword. Just gonna a little. Yeah, that would be nice. The template would be nice. Alright, let's add a little unnecessary detail. Keep going with that. Yeah, stamp would be good. This song, so weird. Look at that, I'm off camera again. Let's get rid of that little pencil line. I want to smudge it. All right, let's add a little shadow. Alright, I'm going to have the light source kind of coming from the top right, I think. So we're just going to hit some shadow. We pull out the big fat Copic and just kind of darken in some spots. I usually just take the big one and get sort of close to the edge. And I'll roll back in with one of the brush pens to get the edges more accurately. Sometimes I don't go all the way up top. Down here, I would assume most of this is in shadow. If the light's coming from above, we'll end up darkening out most of this. See that little raised detail there adds a little bit of interest. I think I'll have this plane here in the dark as well. Down here, this will be darkened in. Sometimes when I've got this big fat marker, I'm just kind of like marking it so I'll remember to do it later. This whole part right here will be in shadow. I'll actually have this weird raised part catch a little bit of light there. And you know what? If it looks weird, just bust the marker right back out. Color it in. This overlaps a bit, so we'll hit a little shadow under there. This part definitely will be in the shadows. Keep going up here. Hit a little bit of that. Sometimes just a little touch will do. Alright, let's take care of his Grimlock's head. Slept through the last one. Are you in a... what time zone are you in? If you don't mind me asking. This little ear thing will cast a little shadow. I'm trying to go too heavy with the shadows, but I find if you can just catch a few good ones, it'll make a big difference. So like this, the plane on the left side of this little raised thing here would be, if the light's coming from this way, it would be in shadow, but it would also cast a shadow here a little bit, so sometimes you get a little extra there. Yeah, everybody's, you know, got a different work schedule, sleep schedule. Everybody in my house has a different one. I think I should probably save the rest of this one for a Monday stream. I finished the other ones that I started on a stream, but I think this one will be fun to mess around with. You know, once I get all this added in, we can use some of the whiteout brush and just add a lot of scuffs and cool effects. I don't know if we'll get there in the next half hour or so. What time is it here? About 40 minutes left. Well, we'll see how we do. Sunny Sides of Blue, welcome. Yeah, if you can do it, do that multitasking. Multitasking. However you want to say that. Oh, whoever's speaking there has got a lot of tongue rolling going on. Sometimes when I'm, you know, kind of darkening out an area like this that has a bunch of detail, I'll just leave that little thin white line between the different planes just so you can kind of see a little bit of it. It's probably smarter to just black the whole thing out, but what fun is playing it smart? Oh, good. Procrastinating on studying. Yeah, I think that's probably what my daughter's doing right now. Now that I, complimented her, I can say that. She's a tremendous student, though. She does a great job. But, what teenager doesn't wait to the last minute to do some things sometimes? I know I did. Sometimes I waited a little too long, beyond the last minute. Yeah, sometimes I really put a lot of effort into making sure the little white lines show, and it depends on how much of a hurry I'm in, but usually I like to get them in there. Of course, Grimlock's hands are black, so any area that's darker, when I'm dropping in shadows, take a little more liberty with shadows in a darker area. The funny thing about Transformers is, like, if you're adding hard shadow like this, so you're assuming that the light's coming from this direction, so this is backlit and the front is going to be kind of in shadow, but the plane of these is slightly different than the plane of this thumb. This is more like straight at the camera, and these are slightly towards the ground. So I got the hard shadow in there. Now, I could throw that in hard shadow, or I could leave it. But you kind of, like, with a more organic shape, you can sort of have it go around, and there's not like a hard mathematical right or wrong to whether or not that area should be in heavy shadow. It's less room for error. Or maybe I'm just thinking too hard about it, which is probably the case. All right, I think I'm gonna put this. Just put the whole thing in shadow there. Why not? It's a nice contrast between the edge of the fist and the rest of the forearm there. And of course, we can scuff it up a little bit if we want to. Give it a little extra personality. Go ahead and drop that plane. Drop shadow in that plane. We'll even do the tops of these joints here. So you'd figure this thumb would be casting a little bit of shadow anyway. All depends on how hard the light is, but we can do what we want. I think that was a solid choice. We'll even do the thumb also. Let's see if we really regret that decision. Focus issues again. I think I might back the camera up a little bit. Seems a little bit close. I have it about the same place I did last time. So I had a lot of little detail in last time with that battle scene, I guess, for lack of a better term. Sorry, guys. Back this up a little bit. Yeah, maybe that'll be better. Figured I'd go grab this real quick if anybody wants to have a good look at how this wound up. See, there's a lot of small detail in there. I wanted to get the camera a little bit closer when I was working on that, but we'll really screw with the focus here. I'll try to get a little closer. There's my guy. Thank you. Which arm would that be? The Grimlock arm? Yeah, those are fun. I like you can really kind of like, whoops, with a brush pen you can really kind of play with the little shines and whatnot, like up here on the metal arm. I figure, there will be some kind of shine running across that on the top and the bottom. So, depending on how hard you press the pen, it'll give you a different thickness. It can be fun to play with. There's no like hard right or wrong. I think these ought to have a little shine going down them. And the bottom would be all in shadow. And these would each cast a shadow. And you can play with a little bit there. I kind of fudged it, but this pen is this is I think the medium-sized zebra. I can't read any of that, but it's nice. I'm looking at, I'm doing something a little different this time. I have my iPad set up to the side of me and I can kind of see the chat as it's coming through, but there is a delay there. So I think if I looked at my phone, I could see the chat right away, but that view is a little obscured by my little phone holder there. So it's a few kinks to work out, I guess. Yeah, I get pretty much all of my pens from jetpens.com. I'm a little overdue to place an order also. Here we go again, that sweet outro music. I feel like Barry Manilow should start singing any minute. I think I want to add a few more hard shadows here. Let's see. Making it up as we go here. Maybe I should spare you all the boring filling in of the shadow here, and we can do some fun detailing on like that arm. You just focus on that arm. You don't have to do things in the usual order. Probably out of focus, or out of the camera again. Anybody has anything they'd like to see on future streams? I would like to keep doing this, so, you know, with the world being what it is, we'll see what happens, but if I can, I want to keep it up, and if there's something that sounds interesting to you, throw it out there. I can't guarantee I'll do it, but if it sounds fun, maybe I will. Oh yeah, we're not even close to done. I mean, I tend to over detail things sometimes. I probably should learn to just kind of leave it alone, leave it simple, but I don't know. It's kind of just not how I do it, I guess. Sometimes I'll add some detail and I'll be like, oh God, I shouldn't have done that. But you know, little things like that. You know, I imagine if these are like the bottoms of his little dinosaur claws when he's in dino mode, so there's got to be something on the bottom there. You know, sometimes on like a plain surface like this, whatever bottom of his or front of his forearm here, you know, just add a little thing there. You know, you imagine these parts are, you know, going in and out of, you know, as he changes and transforms. So, you know, I like to imagine it's not just going to be a straight up smooth surface. So, you know, like here, I'll just put, don't ask me what these do, but, you know, little vents or grooves or whatever. You know, like this the top of the forearm is pretty plain. You know, I'm sure if you pulled out like the Masterpiece toy or something, you know, it would have all kinds of stuff going on all these surfaces. So I don't like to get too crazy with it, but, you know, sometimes I'll add a little mid-grade shadow too. Like again, if the lighting's coming down this way, you've got this kind of odd piece here. So, you know, just throw a little thing there. Kind of puts it in shadow a bit. This piece right here is kind of rounded, so you can kind of do some of that. Fascinating stuff. I don't imagine it is, but that sounds like sarcasm, which is hilarious to me. Fascinating. But I don't imagine you actually mean it that way. Yeah, I mean this surface is just, you know, a little boring if I add a little kind of angled thing coming in here. Again, a lot of times I like to have this penciled out beforehand, but we're not doing that today. So, you know, just kind of make it up as we go. And if it looks stupid, well, that's what whiteout's for. Sometimes too, I just like to put little scuff marks. A lot of times I'll take my finest, the 005, and just kind of, again, you imagine he's been through it a little bit, so, you know, the knuckles are going to have some little scuffs on him here and there. This part, when he's in dino mode, he kind of walks on it, so it's going to be a little bit scuffed up as well. Yeah, let's see if we can do some of this. Sometimes, like, if you imagine there's like, you know, kind of a big scar or crack or something like that, you know, he got hit with something at some point there, and then you can take your white out after and kind of add a little bit going into the shadow, even if you've already colored it in. My good whiteout pen is dead. Like I said, I have to place an order for a few supplies, but we'll use the old brush. I have like a, I don't know if you can see this, the thing I had up before. I always have a little test piece of paper up top where I can test my tools out before I apply them to the paper. But, you know, just take the little brush and get a little thin thing in there. Once that dries, I can kind of refine it a little bit. I'll put some scuffs on his knuckles here. Maybe we'll overdo it a bit. Maybe we'll really scuff them up good. You know, I had, I don't think they make it anymore, a Sharpie, just a paint pen in extra fine, and I can't find it anywhere. I can find the fine point, which is not, it's too thick for stuff like what I'm doing here, but the extra fine was really nice. But I don't know if it's discontinued or I just can't find it. But I've been getting a lot of use out of the brush lately, which is nice. All right, let me put that away for a minute. I'll let that dry. We'll hit some more shadow spots. I think we'll give, sometimes I put reflections on the visors, sometimes I don't, but again, for a piece that's meant for just like black and white display as opposed to something that is meant to be colored, I'll maybe add a little more of this type of thing. And I think I've made it look a little bit more backlit, so I'll kind of continue with that whole idea. Get some shadow on the front of things. I should probably put some shadow on the front of his face in some parts. And sometimes after I put the thicker painted lines on, I'll go back in with a thinner one and add a little something like that. Just give it a little extra dimension. So anyway, I think my paint's pretty much dry there, so you can kind of go back in and just refine it a little bit. So it's not so, these are pretty good, but you can sort of, you know, carry the white. I don't know how well you can see that on the camera, but you know, you have the white scuff going that way, but you gotta imagine when it goes around the corner, it's gonna carry over a little bit. Can you see that? All right. I don't know, just little fun things, details. Sorry about doubling your supply list. Well, I'm just using my phone here, but I'm sure there are better ways to do it. I certainly wouldn't give any advice on streaming at this point. Who's my favorite Dinobot? I mean, I suppose it would be Grimlock. I don't really like... surprisingly, the Dinobots were never my favorite group as a kid. Like, nothing against them. Like, they're cool and all. Dinosaurs and robots, great. But I don't know. I didn't gravitate towards them. So, I don't know. I'm tempted to say Swoop just because, you know, I've been able to meet and hang out with Michael Bell a few times. And so that was kind of fun. done swoop for a few prints and things like that. But I don't really have a favorite Dinobot. Anyway, here's another of the useless details you can just throw in there to add a little something. You know, sometimes you just add a little something like that. I don't know. Let's probably pick this up from Alex or Don. Just detail for the sake of detail. Why is Jazz my favorite? He is the coolest, yeah. It was one of no, I got you, Zombie Prowl. So Jazz, it's kind of a partially probably a first toy thing. That was my first Transformer. Also, it has to do with the alt mode, that Porsche. I don't know. I was never like a car person per se, but even as a kid, I just saw that Porsche and was like, man, if I could ever have a car, when I grow up and have a car, I want it to be that, you know, not having any idea how unrealistic that is. But, and then the voice, the Scatman Crothers voice, was just, I don't know, he's just so cool. Everything about Jazz, it just seems so cool right from the get-go. So, I guess that would pretty much sum it up. I liked that he survived the 86 movie. I always felt like that was kind of some sort of endorsement of him by whoever's making those decisions. Anyway, here what I'm doing is, you know, just thickening the line work around the edge. I probably make all this last a little bit longer than I need to, the way that I do it, but you know, I lay down my thinner lines first, and then where I want to define or add depth later, I'll just kind of thicken the lines around that. Just makes it stand out. Huh. Yeah. Ugly sobbing about Prowl. Is that because he died in the movie? Alright, let's go ahead and add some more just random kind of scuffs and dirt and whatever. You know what I'll also do, which I'll sometimes do, again, not usually on pieces that are meant to be digitally colored, but again, the light source is coming from back here. I imagine this hand should cast some kind of shadow down this way. Now, this is a real thin pen I'm using here, so it's not going to be like super prominent, but just kind of gray it out a little bit. Yeah, Prowl's death was super traumatizing. That smoke coming out of his mouth and everything. That might have been the roughest death in the whole movie, just for shock value. Was he before Ratchet and Ironhide? Was that before they both took bullets? Ratchet's death was worse. It was just so, you know, you never got the funeral for those guys. You know, obviously Optimus, it's a big deal about Optimus dying and everybody standing around and, you know, having that moment. But, man, those other guys were just wasted and never heard from again. All right, let's do a little... Oh, the animated movie. Yeah, that's right. Ratchet was a little rough in the Bay movies, too. I think this is kind of begging for a little panel coming in here. Lord knows why, but I feel like it has to be there. Yeah, that was a shock. Ironhide was a shock in the Bay movies. Yeah, hopefully you guys don't mind that I'm just kind of messing around here with not a lot of real purpose. Just kind of trying to make it interesting and just fiddle around. Ratchet was like the, is it the second movie? Ratchet was pretty early. I never saw, let me think. I saw the first Wahlberg movie, and then I didn't see the one after that. So that was the fourth, right? The first Wahlberg. But yeah, Ratchet was hunted down, I feel like pretty early. I don't know if it was the second movie or the third movie. Clearly it didn't leave as much of an impact on me as it probably should have, but I feel like that was a shocker early on. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna hold off on this thing. We'll finish it on Monday. I'm thinking of trying a later stream on Monday. I gotta make sure it works for my family, because typically my work schedule, I end it around 3 o'clock, which is why I've done the 1 to 3 time frame a couple of days on this. But I know there's a lot of people in different time zones, and so I'd like to try a later stream sometime next week, possibly Monday. We'll see. I'll announce it ahead of time. Okay, yeah, I remember that. All right, that makes sense. Yeah, Jazz was right away, but that wasn't the real Jazz, so it didn't break my heart too much. Bumblebee was great. I loved Bumblebee. Really? Mom is a big Megatron fan, huh? All right, well, it feels like a bit of an abrupt way to end, but I think I'm going to call this for today, and probably save the rest for Monday, and yeah, see where we wind up. I think we'll add some, keep adding details and scuff marks and whatnot, and just kind of give them a lot of character and personality, and put some kind of, debris or smoke or something like that in the background, and see how it all winds up. But thank you for coming along and commenting, and thanks for being you. I hope everybody has a safe weekend, a good weekend, and hope I'll see you all on the stream in the future. And bear with me, because I don't actually know how to stop this. Because I got Streamlabs here, which looks different. There it is. All right, everybody, have a good weekend.